The Women's Rugby World Cup starts off with a bang. No teams have a big advantage after the first two rounds of the Rugby Championship. There were two huge upsets in the Pacific Nations Cup, and New Zealand has a new holder of the Ranfurly Shield. Hello and welcome to the Rugby Roundup, August 27, 2025. My name is Big Mike. We are here at Big Mike Sports. Now let's talk some rugby. Also, on this week's episode, we look forward to the next round of action and pool play in the Women's World Cup, as well as the start of the finals of World Cup qualifying in South America's Sudamerica Championship. But enough of all that. Let's get to the roundup. We are going to change proceedings a little bit and start with women's international action first, as it is World Cup time, baby, the most exciting time of every 4-year cycle. The World Cup kicked off last weekend in England. There were some big blowouts. There were a few teams that, well, they weren't as dominating as we thought they might be. There were some teams that did a lot better than we thought they would be. And a few teams that'll be going, oh no, what are we going to do to make it through to the next round? Let's get through it. We'll start with Pool A. First game of the tournament. Stadium of Sunshine or Light or something in Sunderland. I wasn't really paying attention to the stadium name. England versus the USA. Obviously, USA has their superstar, Lona Ma, bringing in a lot of eyes to the game. A few of those USA squad also plays in Premiership Women's Rugby in England. Final score in this one was 69 points to 7. The USA getting absolutely blown out by the hosts. Dominating, clinical, fantastic. All of these words could be used to describe England's performance in that opening game. The other game from Pool A saw Australia take on Samoa in a battle of Pacific neighbours. Samoa did not get a single point on the board, losing 73-0 to a Wallaroos side that looked fantastic, despite having quite a few losses so far this year. England and Australia are sitting on top of that pool. Now, Pool B. It was 8th in the world, taking on 9th as Scotland played Wales, and Scotland did the job, winning this one 38 points to 8. In the other game from Pool B, could the Fijiana women make a name for themselves in this World Cup? No, not yet so far. They went down 65 points to 7 to Canada, who are ranked 7th in the world. Big news out of this one was Julia Schell, the Canadian superstar, scoring 6 tries. The only other woman with 6 tries in a World Cup game is American Krista McFerrin, which was against Sweden in 1994. However, it is not the record, as in typical women's rugby fashion, the record belongs to New Zealander Portia Woodman, who scored 8 against Hong Kong in 2017. Canada and Scotland sitting on top of Pool B. Now Pool C action. Ireland took down Japan 42-14. They would have been hoping for a bigger score in that one. However, Japan have been playing pretty well in their games leading up to this World Cup. New Zealand versus Spain 54-8. Obviously, after the Australia game, the England game, and the Canada game, New Zealanders were a bit disappointed in this one because New Zealanders can never be happy with a rugby win. Spain have been a great squad for the last couple of years, and this was one of their biggest challenges to date. New Zealand and Ireland sitting on top of Pool C after one game, and Pool D. In what is likely a battle for top spot, France took down Italy, battle of the Six Nations rivals. This one was 24-0, France not scoring as many points as they had hoped, Italy not performing well at all, but France's defence doing the job. The other game, the newbies Brazil in their first ever World Cup game in either gender. They went down to South Africa 66-6. Ooh, that's a heavy loss. South Africa sitting on top of the pool with France just behind them. That is not it for the blowouts. But if we look at that weekend, the closest game was a 24 points difference. It is going to be a little bit different this week looking at the games we have ahead of us. Now, what happened in men's international rugby over the weekend? It was round 2 of the Rugby Championship. Could Australia make it 2 from 2 against South Africa in South Africa? No, but they had a damn good shot at it. South Africa won this one 30-22. A lot more experienced heads played in this one. Still not winning as much as they would like, but also at the same time, this Wallabies squad is an improving squad, and they deserved to come out of South Africa with more points on the table than the Springboks. Biggest difference in this one, I think, was the experience of those South Africans that took more charge in the game. In the other game of the weekend, it was Argentina versus New Zealand. This one was 13-all at half time, and it finished 29-23 to the Pumas. Their 6th win over the All Blacks in the last 5 years, and also their first victory over the All Blacks in Argentina. Big difference in this one looked like composure. All Blacks fans can talk about the ref. They can talk about injuries, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, when they went on the back foot, they did what the All Blacks love to do. They panicked, they kicked, they lost all their structure, and as a result, Argentina, who are a pretty damn good rugby team, got the job done against the All Blacks again. After the first 2 rounds of the Rugby Championship, every team has 1 win and 1 loss. The All Blacks are sitting on top because of bonus points. There are no games this weekend, but next weekend, Argentina are in Australia and South Africa. All Blacks, Eden Park. The Pacific Nations Cup had its first round. Reminder that this one also serves as a World Cup qualifier for all 4 teams except for Fiji and Japan. The top 3 teams out of the rest of them will qualify, and whoever comes fourth has to take on the second place team in the Sudamerica competition, which will not be an easy couple of games at all. In the first game, the USA were expected to hand it to Canada in Calgary. Canada had only beaten the States once in the last 12 years. They were ranked 25th in the world going into this one. And in the biggest shock of the weekend, Canada got up 34-20. Now, neither of these teams qualified for the World Cup in 2023. And Canada, with that win, may have done enough to secure their place in Australia in 2027. Number 8, Tyler Ardron, scored 4 tries for Canada. Canada are now up to 24th in the world. The USA have dropped down 2 spots to 18th. In the other game, it was another international upset in the Pacific as Tonga took it to Samoa. Now, Samoa and their administration have not had a good time as of late. They've struggled to find games, and it is only proven more and more that they are not leading their proud rugby nation properly, as Tonga took down Samoa in the biggest victory Tonga has ever had, which was 14 points against Samoa, 30 points to 16. Samoa went behind big in the first half. I think it was 17-0. They were never able to claw back. Both of these teams have to play Fiji in their pool. Whoever comes last in the pool will take on whoever comes last out of Canada, the USA, and Japan, and that could quite possibly be for that spot in the World Cup, as we are expecting Japan and Fiji to get 2 victories, or at least 1, and make it through to the semi-finals. Now in the Sudamerica Rugby Championship, in Leg 2, after winning the first leg 38-0 against Paraguay, Uruguay won 78-10. This takes them through to the finals of the Sudamerica facing Chile. Now the winner of that qualifies automatically for the World Cup. The second place, or whoever comes second, takes on that final team out of the Pacific. Now let's look at club results from last weekend, starting in New Zealand with the NPC. We started with a boil over as the Bay of Plenty Steamers, last year's finalists, went down to the Southland Stags. This one was 30 points to 25. Canterbury are now the only unbeaten squad left after dismantling the Hawke's Bay Magpies 26 points to 7. Taranaki lost the Ranfurly Shield to a 79th minute penalty to Lima Sopawanga, who won the game in the last minute again for the mighty Waikato squad, who are now your Ranfurly Shield champions. North Harbour remain winless, going down 43 points to 19. Auckland remain winless after going down 43 to 24 to Northland. North Harbour lost to Tasman. Did I say that? I don't know. Counties Monaco remain winless after going down 33 points to 19 to Otago. That puts Otago in the top 4. Bit of a shock there. And last year's champions, the Wellington Lions, went down to the Manawatu Turbos, 38-28. The top 4 after last week, Canterbury, Taranaki, Tasman and Otago. The 3 Auckland squads, being Auckland, Counties Monaco and North Harbour, are your final 3 teams. In the next division down in New Zealand, we have 4 unbeaten teams remaining in the Heartland Championship, who are West Coast, Whanganui, Mid Canterbury and South Canterbury. To South Africa and Currie Cup action now. The Boland Cavaliers keep their season going strong with a 29-26 victory over the Pumas. Believe it or not, defending champions, the Sharks, got a win over Western Province in the bottom of the table clash. This one was 29-21. The Cheetahs from Free State continue to prove all the points they are wanting to prove to find a spot in a bigger league. They took down the Golden Lions 47-31. And the Blue Bulls, without all their Springbok stars, went down to the Griquas 42-21. Free State, the Cavaliers, the Griquas and the Lions make up your top 4 in the Currie Cup. And to women's club action, we have only the one competition happening in New Zealand. It is the Farah Palmer Cup. In the Premiership, the top 7 teams, let's look at what happened last weekend. We had the Manawatu Cyclones beat Hawke's Bay 73-5. Canterbury took down Counties Monaco 62-21. And the Auckland Storm beat Bay of Plenty 104-30. That is 134 points scored in a professional rugby game. At halftime in that one, it was 54 points to 11. That leaves Canterbury, Auckland, Manawatu and Counties Monaco as your top 4 so far in the Premiership. In Championship games, Tasman took down Taranaki 48-25. Wellington beat North Harbour 28 points to 10. And the Otago Spirit sit on top of the table after another bonus point victory, beating Northland 48-15. Now the top 4 in the championship, Otago, Wellington, Northland and North Harbour. Just looking at the stats now in the Farah Palmer Cup. Points differential for Canterbury after 3 games is plus 152. Points differential for Bay of Plenty after 3 is minus 176. For Hawke's Bay after 2 games is minus 140. And that is us for looking at last week's results in the world of rugby. Whoa, that's loud. Anyway, a bit about me. We're at Big Mike Sports. I'm Big Mike. If you want to talk to us, if you want me to talk about any games, any teams, any competitions, best way to do this, Instagram Big Mike Sports NZ. Same with X and YouTube. And you can always head over to Spotify and comment on the episode. Had a great conversation with one of our regular listeners on Instagram. He asked me very bluntly, what do I prefer, having a new baby and being a proper dad, or the Women's Rugby World Cup? And I tell you, the emotion, the screaming, the late nights, all makes the Women's Rugby World Cup better. No huge news coming out this week, however, as always, let's expect something to go wrong in American professional rugby. So let's look forward to this week. What is happening here? We will start with Women's International Rugby and talk about the World Cup. Pool B action sees England taking on Samoa. This should be England's easiest game of the pool. They might make some changes. They might name their top squad. We don't know what England's going to end up doing in this one. England defeated the USA by 62 points. Samoa are minus 73 and haven't scored any points. Can Samoa score any points in this one? The other game, likely for second place in the pool, 2 Pacific 4 rivals as the USA take on Australia. Both of these teams would have been eyeing this one as their gateway into the quarterfinals. The USA had an absolute shocker last weekend. Can they get up against Australia? Australia had a mighty fine game against Samoa. Can they back it up against USA Rugby? In Pool B, Canada will look to continue their momentum as they take on Wales, who lost last weekend to Scotland. Scotland, on the other hand, will be taking on Fiji. Fiji scored just 1 try against Canada. Canada should be Fiji's hardest game. They'll be up and they'll be ready to fight. Pool C, Ireland take on Spain. Spain did well against New Zealand. They are a growing squad. Ireland might be a bridge too far. Ireland did well against Japan. This will be where they're really working on their combinations, heading into their game against New Zealand next week. Not that we would ever look past an opponent in a World Cup. As the Black Ferns take on Japan. Japan scored 14 against Ireland. They've had a few wins this year. This will be their biggest challenge to date. Finally, in Pool D, South Africa destroyed Brazil last week, and Italy lost to France, and they will be taking on each other in what will be most likely a battle for second place in Pool D. After losing to the unfancied South Africans by 60 points last week, how will Brazil face, or how will they survive against the French this week in the final game of round 2 of your pools in the Women's Rugby World Cup? Some fiery contests going on this week, and if you do the math, it shows that next week there are going to be some huge games. To men's international action now, there is no Rugby Championship this week, but the Pacific Nations Cup rolls on. Tonga will be taking on Fiji in Fiji. They have surprised Samoa. Can they do it against the Flying Fijians as well? And Canada looking to do the same thing against the fancied team in their pool when they take on Japan. The USA and Samoa will be sweating these games because they are hoping that someone does poorly and they can get up next week so they do not end up in that 5th and 6th playoff game against each other. Who would have thought going into the Pacific Nations Cup that it might be USA versus Samoa instead of Tonga versus Canada? Also, it's a 2-leg race. Chile versus Uruguay. The winner of these 2 legs will be going straight to the Rugby World Cup in 2027. Loser, well, you know what's coming for them. The 3rd place battle between Paraguay and Brazil will be taking place in a few weeks' time, and whoever comes 3rd will be going into that final qualification tournament, which already includes Belgium and Namibia. 2 club action this week. We'll start with the men's in New Zealand in the NPC. First game we're going to talk about. How about we talk about that Ranfurly Shield defence for Waikato, their first defence taking on Southland, who got that big upset win against Bay of Plenty last weekend. Other games we're going to see. Tasman versus Otago, which is 3rd versus 4th. Northland looking to make it into the top 8 if they can knock down the Magpies of Hawke's Bay. Counties Manukau searching for their first victory against Taranaki. Can Canterbury stay unbeaten as they take on the Manawatu Turbos? North Harbour versus Bay of Plenty. I remember this game from last season and it was absolutely fantastic. And finally, the two biggest disappointments so far of 2025. As the defending champions who have only one win from 4, the Wellington Lions, host Auckland, who are 0 from 4 and 3rd from the bottom of the table. Interesting note, this week there are 16 All Blacks players who have been in that All Blacks squad that went to Argentina, most of whom did not make the match day 23s. They will be playing this weekend for their NPC squads. Waikato and Bay of Plenty, and a little bit of Canterbury too, look like they'll be getting bolstered the most. Also, Caleb Clark, who did get hurt before that French series, will be back playing for Auckland. Potentially maybe one of the keys to helping the All Blacks on the wing heading into that game against South Africa. In Currie Cup action this week, top of the table Free State take on third place Griquas. You've also got the Golden Lions versus the Blue Bulls, Sharks versus the surprisingly fantastic Boland Cavaliers, and the bottom of the table Western Province versus the Pumas. In Women's Club action, it is the next round of the Farah Palmer Cup. Let's look at your premiership games. It is Counties Manukau versus the Hawke's Bay Tui. It is Manawatu, the third place Manawatu Cyclones versus the Auckland Storm, who are sitting in second. This one should be pretty good, both teams coming back from big victories. And you've got Waikato versus Canterbury in a rematch of last year's final. Now in the championship, North Harbour versus Northland, Tasman versus Otago, and Wellington versus Taranaki. And look at that, just like that, we have finished with the rugby we've had and the rugby we've got coming up this weekend. Looking forward to next weekend, we've got those last games in the pool play for the Women's Rugby World Cup. The Rugby Championship is back, the Pacific Nations Cup continues, and somehow already the top 14 is back next week. I've been looking at some of these squads, looking at some of the new signings. Who's going to make the 15s? Then you've got a squad like Toulouse who just look like they have the same team as last year, which isn't a bad thing, as they will be your defending champions. So, Big Mike's Big 3 games. If you've only got time to watch one, follow one, see one, whatever, I don't care. Hey, maybe make sure it's one of these guys. This week was tough. I've got honourable mentions, and I've got 3 games to watch. I rarely have a big 2 games, but let's see what comes out of my mouth. Honourable mentions this week. We've got Tasman versus Otago in the New Zealand NPC, 3rd versus 4th. In the Women's World Cup, we have Italy versus South Africa, a potential game for 2nd place in Pool D. In the Pacific Nations Cup, can Tonga continue their momentum and get a big upset victory over your flying Fijians? And the big 3 for this week. The New Zealand NPC, I've actually gone with a bit of a surprise game. We've got Auckland versus Wellington. These are the homes of the Blues and the Hurricanes. There'll be All Blacks playing on both sides. Both teams have been disappointing. Which one is going to take it out? And which one will end up being the saddest team of the season? Heading over to South America, we got the first game in that double-legged race between Chile and Uruguay for a spot in the World Cup. And in the Women's Rugby World Cup, I think the best game this weekend is going to be Australia versus the USA in Pool A. 2 teams that take on each other every year. Australia got the win this year. USA got the win last year. Australia got the win the year before that. Who is going to take this one and most likely be the 2nd place team in Pool A for a quarterfinal against Canada? Unless, of course, something seriously goes wrong for Canada, which we cannot see, because they scored 6 tries with just 1 person last week. Alright, that's enough for this week. Just go and enjoy it. Oh, it's going to be so good. It is going to be so fantastic. Another week of beautiful rugby to all my beautiful listeners out there. Special mention, as always, to my one consistent listener in the Netherlands. Anyway, from everyone here at Big Mind Sports to all of you, I hope you have a beautiful week and you watch some beautiful rugby.